All right, in this video, I am going to cover the other note-taking strategy that we are going to learn and practice over the next several weeks, and that is mind maps. So why mind maps? Mind maps are really helpful ways for visual learners to process the information. Mind maps they're more focused on the bigger ideas of the text versus sort of a linear explanation or a linear summary of the text. So you start with the big ideas and go from there. Mind maps make it really easy to make connections because you're seeing the information visually in sort of a different format. And lastly, mind maps are really fun. You get to incorporate a lot of artistic freedom, and for those that are really creative, this is a really beneficial way to process and to take notes. How do we do mind maps? Well, unlike Cornell notes, which you can kind of do as you are reading, mind maps, you really need to have an initial reading of the text completed before you approach the note-taking. So you're going to go through the text in its entirety, and in this initial reading, you're looking for big ideas, the main ideas that drive the article. Then, once you have that initial reading done, you're ready to start your mind map. You're going to start with the title, and from the title, you surround the title with those main ideas that you were looking carefully for. And once you have that initial web started on your mind map, then it's time to go back into the text. You're going to go back into the text and then use details from the text to expand on those main ideas. So what are you looking for specifically? Well, you're looking for the significance of those main ideas, or maybe some supporting details, quotes, stats or data. That is the kind of stuff that you're going to use to fill in your mind map around those big main ideas. And then you're going to notice that you will be able to make connections from those big ideas. So that supporting information around those main ideas are going to help you to see how everything is sort of related. And the mind map is going to help you to make those connections visual. Here are some examples. So again, you're going to start with the title. And from the title, you have these main ideas. And then from the main ideas, you have the supporting information. And oftentimes from those supporting information, you can even further further or expand your web out farther and farther. Here is one. So this one here is quite creative. You can see that there's a lot of artistic freedom going on with font and color. This one here is a little bit more analytical. It's a little bit more straightforward, but still very beautiful display of information here. And this one also, you can see how they got creative with the arrows and started making sort of connections from main ideas, right? Now, this is a video that I've recorded of my own process. So we're going to watch it in its entirety, and this will give you an idea of how to approach mind maps. Hello, students. So I thought it'd be helpful if I record a video of myself doing a mind map so that you might have some direction and you might use this as an example when you're making your own mind maps. So first of all, obviously this is a digital version. I'm doing this on Google Drawing, but I will say that typically when I do mind maps, I like to use a blank sheet of paper or lined paper. I feel like that gives me a little bit more artistic freedom. And I'll usually use pencils and pens and highlighters or whatever I have to kind of make it unique in my own. And I will also say that, so in order to do a mind map, obviously I had to read an article. So the article that I read is Why Do We Mind Map? This is kind of like a blog. And it's important to know that when you do mind maps, it's after an initial reading. So you should already have listened to the TED Talk or read the entire text or whatever medium of information that you're building a mind map of. You need to have an initial understanding or initial overview. So make sure that you're reading the text in its entirety before you start mind mapping. And as you're reading, you want to be very, very careful in looking for the big ideas, right? So the ideas, the main points or key facts that kind of drive the article. So after the initial reading, you are going to start your mind map. So first of all, this is the very basic layout. You're going to have sort of a bigger circle or some shape in the center, and that's going to be your title. So it'll be the title of your article or whatever it is that you are reading or analyzing or taking notes on. And branching off from that bigger circle in the center is going to be the big ideas. So you can see that I've already started that. So some of the big ideas of the article that I read, what are the benefits of mind mapping? Why do we mind map? Well, they're really helpful for making connections. Another key idea was for visual processing. Of course, here we have that mind mapping is just fun. And then another big idea is it's helpful for cluster thinking. So obviously this is not a very good overview of the article. I have a general idea of those main ideas, but if I'm just approaching this mind map, not having already read the article myself and with little information about mind maps already, this is not going to be very helpful. So now what we're going to do is we're going to return to the text, and we're going to use the text to help us finish or flush out our mind map. Okay, so first let's start with visual processing. So in the text, I'm just going to use the little text box icon here. In the text, it talks about how there are different learning styles. And we'll say mind maps are really beneficial for those who process information visually. So visual learners really benefit from mind maps. I'm going to make that a little bit smaller. Also, in terms of visual processing, mind maps are also really helpful for people who prefer to demonstrate their understanding using creativity or artistic ability. So let me make that smaller. Okay. All right, so demonstrating understanding using creativity and artistic ability. So let's move on to making connections. So we know from our previous direct instruction on reading strategies that there are several different connections that you can make to text. You can make text-to-text connections. You can make text-to-world connections. You can make text-to-self connections. What's great about mind mapping is the web-like design is really helpful when making connections. They help learners to see the connections visually. So once you start building off of these main ideas and sort of fleshing out and deepening your understanding, you're going to notice that as you expand on these main ideas, you're going to, just as it says here, find how a lot of these big ideas are interconnected or make connections. For example, the web-like design is really helpful when making connections. They help learners to see those connections visually. So already I'm noticing that making connections and visual processing are really closely related. There's a connection there. And what's great about mind maps is, as opposed to just skipping a line and making that connection using text, you can actually do that using little lines and arrows. So I'm just going to go ahead and make that connection. Perfect. So, as I said, you're going to do an initial reading of the text, and then from that initial reading, find those main ideas, and then go back into the text and flesh out those main ideas. So, surround the main ideas with significant supporting details, or consequences or implications, or quotes from the text. And then notice how those supporting details of the main ideas are going to help you to make connections to other main ideas. Okay, so in the interest of time, we're going to go ahead and fast forward here. What you're looking at now is my completed mind map. You'll see that I went back into the text in order to flesh out all of these main concepts or these big ideas on the side. I also want you to notice how as I was going through and finishing my mind map, I was able to make connections between some of these bigger ideas, right? How some of the supporting ideas or the supporting information surrounding those big ideas are closely related or closely related to some of the other big ideas. So in conclusion, yes, my expectations are that these mind maps are very thorough, that they are reflective of sincere effort and close reading of the text. But really, mind maps are supposed to be fun. So get creative and enjoy. And of course, if you have questions, always reach out.